Greetings. A lot of people are celebrating Mother's Day today, and I want to celebrate with you, but I also want to bring and drop some knowledge. I want you to feel better. I don't want you to be tied up in hallmark realities of today is this day and tomorrow's that day. And, well, you get to celebrate this and you get to celebrate that. And, well, my mother's not here. My mother's not here right now. I want you to celebrate Mother Earth. Celebrate yourself. Celebrate the fact that you mother good ideas for yourself and good habits, daily habits, that you love yourself, that you're alive, that I could make this great cup of chai tea this morning with my homemade almond milk, that the dogs that are living with me in this house are going to get to go outside and feel some beautiful sunshine. I miss my mother. Many of you miss your mother. Many of us are disconnected from our mothers, but we still have our great mother, Mother Earth. Whether you call her Gaia, you call her Great Mother, you call her Mother Earth, she's there for us. She's all for all of us equally. She provides earth and water, air. When we are birthed, when I say happy birthday, I spell it B-E-A-R-T-H, birth. We are born by and from the earth. This skin bag that we have is essentially clay. So the greatest gift I'm going to give myself today is to go out and be with Mother Earth and be thankful and let go of any preconceived expectations, or I didn't receive any Hallmark cards because I don't need them. I don't want them. I don't need flowers that are cut off the vine for me. I'm going to go out and enjoy the flowers outside like I have been for many years. I didn't need to get my hair done because it's already done, okay? And I just refreshed myself with a few juicy nuggets that I want to share with you because they meant a lot to me on my journey, and I hope that they'll mean a lot to you, okay? This is an older book. It's called The Chalice and the Blade by Riane Eisler. It's a little bit of a meaty book, it's a little thick. And I'm not here to bash anybody's religion, but as you can see in the title, it's called Our History and Our Future. Our History and Our Future. Can you see it? People write reviews like the most important book since Darwin's Origin of Species by Ashley Montagu. Riane Eisler is the author. A beautiful woman, still alive today, speaks about partnership ways and speaks about the reality of how we came to be living in dominator ways. Now, before anyone jumps on the bandwagon and assumes that I'm just a religion basher, let me just preface that I'm not. But I'm acutely aware of how many of the systems that we have today were formed, okay? If I do this to an officer, it means I'm allowing myself to be handcuffed. I often do this to indicate respect. But did you know where a lot of the rituals, a lot of the ways that you behave, a lot of the ways that are just considered automatic, natural, reality-based, did you know that most of them are dominator-based? Did you really know? Did you know that Indo-Aryans that were called Hittites rode over the Caucasus Mountains and came into city by city by city Because the Bible told them, look it up for yourself, it's in the Old Testament, that God told them that they had permission to go slew and murder everyone in those cities. Take all of their statuaries and melt them down into the gold and take the gold with them for the Hittite priests. If you were a beautiful woman and you helped to run partnership models and helped to take care of all of the agriculture that fed all of the people, babies, children, young adults, older adults, the very aged, all the way into the extreme aged, the ancients. And we fed everyone. You never went to a store. You never had to have money to buy these things. It was assumed that everyone was fed. And it was assumed that the people that had the strength and the ability to do so all pitched in to take care of the food, because that's how we stayed alive. It's called tribe mentality, community mentality. Many of those goddesses, because they were predominantly female and not feminists, but they were female in the goddess ways, meaning that we saw that all life was birthed through a female womb. Many of them were taken from these communities by their hair, bludgeoned and murdered, dragged behind horses, and the temples were completely annihilated, and the people were murdered. All of their goods that they had built, their artwork and their creativity and their paintings and everything, were all taken. The serpent or the snake was seen as another divine example of life, in the same way that a bee will sting you and it hurts. The bee has to pollinate the almonds that you're eating, and the almonds that I'm drinking in my chai with almond milk that I made here yesterday from scratch, and I milked it through my almond nut milk bag. The bee is going to keep you alive, that little tiny bee buzzing around that's now being trucked on semi-trucks out to California to almond orchards and fruit orchards. And if you look to China, you will see people standing on ladders manually pollinating so that they have a food supply. The same is true with the snake. In fact, in reverence for the snake, or also known as uniformly the serpent, the goddess temples had snake tubes going throughout all of the different temples to ensure that they had safe passage. If you look to India and many of the very older cultures, very different than the American culture, you will see that the cobra and the snake was always revered, and you will look to the caduceus and you will see the double entwined serpent or snake, which is also emblematic of our DNA helix, isn't it? That is our sacred cord. That is our sacred etheric cord, which science, necessarily seeking only tangible results and empirical evidence, measured to tell you had X amount of chromosomes, X amount of chemicals, X amount. But you see, you cannot empirically measure everything. You just must know that everything that is here in the natural world is here for us. If I was to take you way back, historians, anthropologists, and archaeologists like academics like Riane Eisler and others like, my book is in a bag now because it fell apart and it was chewed over the years from 1976, like Merlin Stone, a book gifted to me by my grandmother in 1976, you'll find out that many times we needed every single aspect of nature to continue to survive. The bee, the snake, the bull, the wolf. The wolf is the universal symbol for nature. That's why it's in all of your fairy tales, the Three Little Pigs, Little Red Riding Hood. I mean, we could keep going. You know, the big bad wolf is in everything. I want to patiently and eloquently and calmly and politely relate with you. That books, many books that you read have been edited and rewritten. Can you entertain that for a moment? Books of the Bible were also rewritten by individuals who meant to gain control and monopoly over people, and particularly over the womb. How so? Well, because if you had monopoly over the womb, you had the ability to have monopoly over procreation and to take forcibly a matrilineal society that lived in accordance with the earth, and our representation of that was this. Okay? It was this. Open hands. The open cup. The open cup. Not this. Not the closed book. Not bondage. Not sealed, not inflexible. Open. Baal was not an aspect or a totem of Merrill Lynch, the male investment firm. Baal was sacred, and Baal later was turned into Satan because of the identity was Set, S-E-T, Set, a Kemetic Egyptian ancient deity. A beautiful horned bull was turned into, with cloven, feet, was turned into the horned, cloven-tailed devil or Satan. I hope you're staying with me. I hope you're listening. I hope you hear me gently, compassionately. You've been replaying and replaying and replaying a travesty. You've been teaching it. You grandmothers, you great-grandmothers, you've been teaching it to your daughters and their 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 daughters for over 2,000 years now. Well, what were you teaching? That we no longer operate with partnership ways, and we operate under dominator systems. That only people with money are entitled to eat, enjoy life, and live simply, and that the rest are peasants, servants, vagrants, homeless, bums. Because in that kind of a mentality that is hierarchical, caste-based, racist, non-humanitarian, non-partnership-based, dominator-based, that's all you have left over once you've squeezed the utility out of the cow that you've milked and tossed her calf to the side, and you lock up her babies because they don't conform to the construct. And you place her in a hospital, and in the 1960s, you strap her down before she gives birth. And you take everyone's symptoms and you drug them, and you drink them, and you smoke them. Pretty soon you have what you have today. You have people bending over. You have people lopsided. You have people sicker than they've ever been. You have 10 international codes of disease, 10 volumes of disease codes. You have a diagnostic service manual with 5 or 6 volumes of mental health that started only a couple hundred years ago with one. It was called insanity. What is insanity? You're not sane. Anyone will go insane, particularly trying to keep up with the enormous pain, the evocative pain of Mother's Day. Because if we don't respect our mothers every single day, and starting with our great mother, right here, the most beneficent mother on the planet, great mother, that's what I'm celebrating today. and I'm respecting my mother and her mother and all the mothers before me and all the mothers of the world, regardless if you had children or not. Men mother ideas. Boys mother ideas. Mothering is to manifest other creativities outside of yourself, not just birthing other human beings. It is other. To manifest other. I'm all about manifesting other ideas that are partnership based. So what has happened now is that religion has created social, business, moral, church and state, governmental. There are so many affiliations, you can't unwind yourself from it. Certainly not the aspect of putting on a fresh new dress and some hosiery and some high heels and going off to church, because it's just as much a social event, which is lovely, as it is continuing to evoke your connection with God through a church building and church mannerisms, rules, codes, and ordinances. It gives you a sense of privilege. I'm not here to hate on churches. I'm here to say, if you actually read through this book by Riane Eisler, you'll find out, and it clearly says in the Old Testament, so I suggest that you pull out a book, or just pull out the Old Testament of the Bible. Look in the book of Kings, look in Exodus, look in Deuteronomy, look in Romans, look in Revelations. I could keep going. Okay? A lot of people are hurting today because it's been stationed in such a way that everyone wants to see flowers and mom and happy and everything going perfectly, but that's not the way it is for the majority of us. Not the minority, the majority. And why is that? I don't want this to be a downer on your Mother's Day, but I want you guys to start waking up. Somewhere, someone's going to watch this today, and this is going to help somebody. Someone who's drowning in the abyss of self-pity that's produced by the rote expectations of an automatic simpleton construct that says, I don't have that. And I feel for you. I don't either. Not because I'm old, but because that connection wore away a long time ago. And, well, let me break it down. You can't really wake up all the way and maintain all of your pretenses and connections, because it won't work. What you can do is whittle yourself out of the construct, and then you can be hopeful that the people that you absolutely love and adore are going to do the same thing, but you can't force them to wake up. It's not going to happen. They might still keep eating processed cheese food, and eating bacon and drinking cow milk and eating wheat toast and doing what they... Sometimes you have to do that to get by. That's what you have, and you got to make the best of it. But if you have a choice, you got to try to upgrade yourself to the extent that you can. I'm not about more jobs for people. I'm not about more money for the schools. And I'm not about only good people go to church. I'm about good people are in church, good people are in schools, good people are in politics, and good people are everywhere. And those are the people I want to link up with. But I think it's important that if you identify yourself in some sort of a group, whether it's a Christian, a Muslim, whatever group you identify yourself with, that you do the homework. And I did the homework about Christianity. And that homework led me to understanding that women were taken as hostage, that we were no longer allowed to have matrilineal societies where it was okay to bear children and they belonged to the community and everyone loved them equally as family, where lovemaking was not what it is today, getting off in each other as a vessel, using each other as a means of utility to get off. There was a time then on this plain, what you now know as mountains, what you now see as food in the supermarket, that's not true. If you look at the coconut trees, which are some of the last vestiges that go up 60, 70 feet in the earth and they go equidistant down into the ground, 60, 70, 80 feet. They gather ancient minerals from the seafloor. That's why they grow in the tropical areas. They pull those minerals up through the tree, through the neck of the tree, and into the fruit. And you receive those minerals in the coconut water that are so anti-inflammatory for you, that keep you youthful, that give you vital minerals. The coconut flesh or meat, look at the terminology that we have. Everything is based on cutting it off of a being. The fruit of the coconut, inside of the coconut itself, that's either hardened or jelly, the fruit of the coconut water or the coconut milk, that is one of your real foods. The papaya, the mango. We made our soap from soap berries, soap bush. We would have never dreamed of painting chemicals on our hair or running out to buy new underpants or buying a vibrator. We wanted to live simply. And you see, I'm not going to say there was no dis-ease at all, because when there are people, there is disharmony, but it was not to the extent that it is today. There was no need for vaccines. If you look at the ancient Egyptian pyramids, do you really honestly believe that some sort of slave race built those pyramids? My grandmother, Etna, told me back in the early 60s, this particular segment of people it's an unpolitically correct word today, but she said they're retarded. She said, we came from the sister planet. We were deposited here. And the people that are here were retarded from radiation. You can believe it if you want to, or not. But when we no longer communicate with each other, when we produce biological warfare, when we are so obsessed with the war machine that even our healers, what are now given to us forcefully as healers because women were healing, and because they were put into their place as chattel, as being owned, as baby makers, housekeepers, one of the only opportunities they had to think about things and to birth their creativity and their magic in the state of enslavement that they lived in was when they had their broom. And just like when I have my broom and I sweep the floor and I mop the floor, I live with dogs, it needs to be done pretty much every day, many, many years of doing it. That's probably one of the times that I'm thinking the most. I'm not playing AC/DC or Rod Stewart or some kind of rock and roll. I'm actually sweeping the floor most of the time in quiet, or if it's sunny outside, I've got the windows open so I can hear the birds singing, and I'm tuning myself to the day. What's coming up for today? I'm tuning myself in. And as I'm sweeping, I'm taking time to listen, and that's what women did. So if they weren't tending to the children from sunrise to sundown, boom, into bed, and then what? Sexually utilize. Right? Always pregnant, always sweeping, barefoot pregnant. When we reduced people, specifically the womb, now I'm going to retract that. Instead of we reduced, let's go back to the Indo-Aryan Hittites. There were Hittites or Hattians, and there were also Hittites that rode over the Caucasus Mountains. They later became the Nazis. So, what's really going on here is we have the game of Monopoly, but the board looks different than the game that you bought and you played with your children. The game looks different, right? But you keep going around the same board. You keep trying to get to go, keep trying to keep yourself fed, property tax paid, everything done. Because it's been carefully calculated, it wasn't very difficult. If you go in and you say, God gave you permission to kill everyone in that town and this town and that town, and we're talking sometimes 1,000 people a day. Well, where's your proof? That's why I told you to look at the book. Look up Riane Eisler yourself. She's a pretty amazing woman. She's actually a Holocaust survivor as well. And you know, those of us that went through some of the hardest times in our life, we're so passionate about the truth, and we're so passionate about saving ourselves and you. I'm all about loving God. I'm just not quite so sure that the program comports with what I'm reading here. Maybe you can prove me wrong. Maybe you can read The Chalice and the Blade and Merlin Stone When God Was a Woman, because I thought those were kind of fluffy, airy-fairy titles. You know, kind of like the nonviolent communication that I studied in 2000 by Marshall Rosenberg. But then being flexible of mind, I thought, you know, there's some points in here that I really cannot overlook, not with any kind of sanity. So I stayed the course, and I kept listening, and I kept finding, and I kept searching. And I realized about the Fertile Crescent. I realized about Isis, Aset, Ishtar. Kind of interesting that that would be our #1 terrorist by that name, isn't it? I mean, she was the most beneficent, powerful goddess, like Ma'at was the goddess of justice. We had goddesses of agriculture, fertility. What's the single largest mythology in the predominant religion? The single largest mythos, mythos, the Garden of Eden, right? The Garden of Eden, where we had Adam and Eve. We had Adam and Eve, no disrespect. We had Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden with the sacred trees of knowledge, right? The sacred grove. We had the serpent that just sort of came along and spoke to Eve, even, okay? Ones and zeros, even, Adam and Eve. So we're going to throw a little matrix spin in there. So Adam and Eve are in the garden. The serpent comes, which was our most sacred animal in some respects. Talks to Eve and says, what'd she say? Don't eat from that tree. And Eve went ahead and ate from that tree anyway. Go ahead, you can eat from that tree. It's okay. And you still repeat that story today to your daughters, to your sons. And you know what it does? It hierarchically places the male here and the female down here, okay? And then you look at the stratosphere and you wonder why the black male and the white female come together. It's a dynamic that was set up on purpose. Not only does it bust up the black male and the black female, but it also puts a big division, and it starts to create problems in many, 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 many different layers and levels. It seems pretty simple to me. I had this conversation with my friend Cheryl in the sauna over 20 some odd years ago. You know, well, why would that happen? Well, let's see. We have an artificial construct with socioeconomics. So there's a caste system. We're progressively using each other as utility. What can you do for me? How can I get off in you? How are you going to be able to feed me? Can you wipe my butt? Can you take care of my mother? And he who has the money gets to decide how much utility you have, how much people are utility to you, right? You can do whatever you want, right? Wrong. How about we actually change things? How about you actually become a myth buster? Because that mythos in the Garden of Eden, electronic den, that myth in the Garden of Eden had everything to do with continuing the dominant paradigm of reducing the female archetype. Because if you keep her submissive and you keep her objectified and subjectified, I'm not a feminist. You keep her in those roles. You keep her barefoot and pregnant. Now this is where someone's going to step in and say, I don't think so. I drive a brand new Cadillac Escalade. I make the rules in my house. I wear the pants. I decide what I do with my money. I know you're talking about a long time ago. Well, you got it twisted too. Let me tell you why, okay? Because you're still bowing down to so many different false ways of life. You haven't opened your mind. And if you haven't opened your mind, you're still in servitude and slavery. Otherwise, you'd be doing everything in your power to inch yourself out of that and promote partnership ways. Because you would know that your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren, you know, your nieces and nephews if you chose not to have children, your neighbors, you know, nobody would want to live in a system that's going the way that it is right now. Who are you that wants walls between countries, that believes in war? Who are you that speaks about fighting, killing, and combating cancer? Your body is giving you red flags. Everything could be so much simpler. Take yourself out of the rote, R-O-T-E, the rote expectation of what Mother's Day is supposed to be. Or you're going to get yourself jacked in the mind. How come I'm not going out to dinner? How come I'm not getting flowers? How come I didn't get gifts? How come no one sent me a card? It didn't come in the mail. Let it go. Save yourself. Spare yourself the grief. Don't expect anymore. I don't expect most of the time anymore. I just say, it is what it is. I'm here. I'm alive. Today's another day that I could go out in nature and I could make the best of it. Come what may. I'll deal with it as it comes. Okay? Let it go. If you're going to embrace religion, understand why we started with just white males in the medical industry. Understand why all doctors were only white males. Understand why the priests and the popes and the pastors and the gods were only male. Understand why that is. Understand Immaculate Conception. Don't just explain it away theologically as an academic. Look at it, feel it, touch it. Is it real? I don't think so. I don't think that mythology is real. I'm not saying I'm an atheist. I'm not saying I'm a religion hater. I'm saying perhaps the way for us out of dominator models and dominator lifestyles and more thugs and OGs and drugs and killing, cutting people open, drug harvesting, human trafficking, prostitution all over the place in sloppy ways is not our original ways. You could make a request for love. Everyone was fed, everyone was cared for. We didn't have Depends, toothbrushes, diapers, Pampers, none of that stuff. And we got along just fine. We didn't have to take all of our trash and put it in a plastic bag and throw it in our little trash can and pay somebody $70 like I do every 2 months to have it hauled away into a sanitary landfill that one day is going to catch up with all of us, isn't it? Because the younger people, that's all they know is everything out of a box, a bag, and a can. No disrespect to those of you who actually eat from the earth, who actually have very minimal waste. But now even purchasing a bunch of tomatoes or something comes in a big plastic container. It's superfluous, excessive packaging. Please recycle. We cannot possibly maintain this lifestyle, not on a dominator level. We cannot maintain this lifestyle through dominator ways, through hierarchy, caste systems, and dominator ways. It's not possible. So eventually what happens is you have a dog, and the dog starts to have health problems, and you start saying, well, I'm just going to get a new one. You know, I've been thinking next time I'm going to get a King Charles Cavalier. Next time I'm going to get a poodle, you know. And you start objectifying the dog. The dog's becoming your love slave. Did you ever notice that? You call him a pet and you're the owner. The dog is basically bound to you most of the time, sitting in a house with no other dogs to communicate with, waiting all day while you go to work, run your errands, get your hair done, get your nails put on. And the dog's freaking miserable because you're throwing down some kibble into a bowl. It's like me feeding you graham crackers every day. We call this, there's Pablo. Say hi, Pablo. Hi, Pablo. Hi. Hi, everybody. Pablo says Happy Mother's Day. Do you, Pablo? You want to wish him a Happy Mother's Day? Oh, just had a little burping. There we go. Okay. I love people. I love animals. I love plants. I love nature. I've had to grow up and be something past being a girl, be a woman, be a solo parent for a time, take care of business when I didn't feel like it, get up and do the chores when I don't feel like it. And I cried my eyes out many a year on a birthday, a Christmas, a Mother's Day. So I'm speaking from experience. I didn't come in a perfect person. I'm never going to be a perfect person. I'm just trying to say, if you take a look at these books over here, don't just listen to what I have to say. I mean, if these Hittite folks wrote in, and that's what they did, was ride into city after city, town after town, community after community, kind of sounds like Christopher Columbus, doesn't it? I mean, didn't he kind of come to America and say that nobody was here? Oh, but a few handfuls of Native American Indians were here, but then, what, we ended up poisoning them, raping them, and poisoning them with smallpox blankets? I mean, kind of sounds like this clan really has a fondness for biological warfare to me. I mean, look at Agent Orange all over Vietnam. Why would you radiate Marshall Islands, Yucca Mountain, and every... Oh, that's right. How could I forget? That way no one will go there because you know of the calderas. You know about the ancient mineral springs. You know because you did teasers with the movie Cocoon, where the people jumped in the water and reversed their aging and healed themselves. So you know about the real ways, but you just made sure that you kept them for yourself, right? You know that after you made a buffoonery and a mockery of anyone who was a shaman, that the only thing that they would see now would be a 1-year certification course that you could fly in to someone and get some janky certification and come out with some kind of, quasi-psychological thing that someone wanted to put their shaman hat on. You didn't really count on the fact that there would be real mystics and intuitives and shamans left in the world. You thought you got rid of them all, right? Yucca Mountain, Bainbury, I-131 ionizing radiation. Just lost my webcam for a second, that's why I had to click it. There are ancient mineral springs located there. Powerful minerals. Underground resources. But you were taught about the Ark of the Covenant. You were taught about the great floods and the earthquakes. You were shown people that were impaled with crosses, nailed to crosses, so that you would forever be obedient and allegiant, so you would never suspect. You were stupidified and reduced and retarded with the use of radiation. That's why you have as many thyroid problems as you do. That's why you don't have much energy. That's why you drug yourself to keep coping and you're depressed and anxious. And the more the internet system, the Wi-Fi is ratcheted up, the more it's going to end up hurting you until you can't even think straight anymore. The number one complaint of hundreds or thousands of my clients has been, I have no memory. I have tons of cysts. I have cystic acne. I have terrible problems forgetting things all the time. And I say, well, I have tools that we can equip you that will make things quite a bit better for you so that the ride won't be quite as bumpy. It won't be so hard on you. Agua caliente. Brujeria? I don't think so. Medicine for the people? I do. Make your day special. Don't get caught up in Hellmark. Don't get caught up in Satan mythology. There's demons and devils out there, but trust me, they don't look like that. They look like you and me. Until you're well within, you can't get right. You can't get your headspace right. I don't know how much longer I can comport with people that are locked down on three-dimensional reality. They say and do things in a very automatic way, and it's really kind of fatiguing, to be honest with you. If you want to learn word sound, if you want to learn righteous movement, if you want me to bring you facts and scholars, and you don't want me just to make it pretty and just stroke you all the time, I'll stroke you on occasion, but not all the time. If you want the real deal, subscribe down below. I'll give you the truth, and you'll be notified when I have new videos and live streams and events, and we'll build a conscious community together. People that actually care about living in partnership ways and not dominator ways. I don't care what else you do. I just care that we try to lift this up a little bit for all the ones and ones. Don't get caught up on the roadblocks. It's not Mother's Day today. It's Mother's Day every day. Celebrate the Great Mother. They took the Great Mother, the divine ancestress, the Great One, from you. They took her womb. Don't get caught up. Just read it for yourself. If you're a Christian, you probably should have read the Bible. If you didn't, then that's called blind faith. And shame on you. This one's from Maka, my grandmother. She passed in 2010. She knew about the temples and the priestesses. She knew 1 or 2 women remaining in the early 1960s when she taught me in San Francisco, where I was born. Women that could do things with their mind that we can't do so well today with the artificial laying down of the grid over the ley lines of Mother Earth. You see, Mother Earth is being completely artificially locked down. That's why you have gravity. That's an artificial construct that keeps you here. You make it a great day. Don't get caught up in the feelings of it. Just be here now. Pablo and I are going to say so long. Say adios. Adios. Mwah. We love you.